I was in a crawl space, dark, damp, spider-infested crawl space. And I had so many emails and texts. I'm like, I can't go back up there. Like, I can't be caught by my trades and answer all the questions and go through things right now. And I just stayed under there with my head on a cinder block behind me, just emailing and catching up on all the text messages. I'm like, I think maybe this is the point where you say it's time to hire someone. I think this is a warning sign right here.
So welcome to the AT Construction Podcast, and we have Meg Billings on today. Welcome, Meg.
Hey, Brad, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you on. So Meg is owner and founder of Meg Construction, and you're located up in Idaho. And we actually met at the Coalition Summit, the Contractors Coalition Summit. But I've been fascinated following you and your build and the team and just the amazing work you've been doing. I know that you're working with some brands similar to me now, and from being at the Builder Show. So let me ask, maybe we start here. Being a woman in construction, being a woman in construction specifically, a woman-owned business owner, what drew you into even coming into construction?
Oh man, the smell of the sawdust. I tell everyone that. Like, I grew up, my parents were always building. My parents or my mom would redesign floor plans and send those out and give my dad all sorts of tasks. So we grew up building cabins or this and that, but not like anything professional. But I loved it and didn't like realize this is what I'd go into. I did manufacturing engineering, so kind of a similar feel and conversation or vocabulary. And I love the architecture side of it. Still didn't think I'll go be a home builder until we built our own house and I did all the design on it. I ran it through Revit, just loved every step of the process. And I'm like, well, let's do this again. That was amazing.
That's amazing. So you actually worked on the design of your own personal home.
Yeah, it was kind of a crazy situation. Our builder got really sick, and so I got to step in and do a lot of those roles and carry the house through from foundation all the way to the end. So it was awesome.
So how do you? Okay, this is a little mind blowing as I think through this. So if you and your family are looking at building a home, you have a builder. Sounds like some things transpired, right? How do you even have? I don't want to say the courage, but the know-how. I mean, everything just to say, okay, I'm going to go on and take on this task to take it from design and then finish construction.
Overconfidence. I don't know what happened there. There wasn't much of a choice. Like, and maybe now that I know more, there were some other things I could have done, but I just kind of dug in. I would take my little boys and throw them in the Chick-fil-A playhouse and hide in the back corner on my laptop and just go to work. And a lot of, oh, how do what happens before framing, what happens after framing, and trying to make those connections and what subs to call and getting things organized.
So not only are you working in design, but you're also managing. You're playing superintendent for the build.
Yeah, I really was. And it was such a blessing because I got to know all the trades. And it's just such a hard thing in Twin Falls, Idaho, where we're at, to be able to get a good team of subs. They all moved out in 2008 and we just didn't get them back like other areas did. So it was super hard, but really great because I did meet a lot of really established trades because I was kind of walking in the shoes of our contractor. And so I got to meet them, and we don't use all of those trades still, but they were super great about being like, I can't, I'm too busy, but talk to my friend Joe and he'll help you out with this or that. And so it was like a huge foot in the door to being able to do it on my own and start my own business.
Did you have any experience in Revit previously?
We did that in college. So that was part of my degree. It's manufacturing engineering, but you get a lot of architecture kind of threaded in there.
Interesting. I was going to ask how you had a background in Revit because I took a little bit in college. We had like an estimating drafting class and stuff, but
Yeah.
I should say I didn't pay enough attention. I really didn't focus how much on that class as I probably should have as others, because I think Revit would be really helpful for me now to
Yeah.
some extent. But we use Bluebeam and we're not really getting into the CAD and details and stuff. But I would imagine that what was the learning curve from just the college application of Revit to real life application of Revit?
Oh man, I sound cooler than I really was. It's more like you're saying in college you get an education that like teaches you where to find the information pretty much. Like you don't come out being a professional at Revit or design or construction. Like there's just so much to learn on the job. And so I fumbled and it was awkward and we had some help on it with some of the technical background of it. And people ask me all the time, am I the one designing our homes now? And there's no way. Like if you're going to live in a program that big, that's the only way to be able to move around like you need to. It's just a beast of a program.
Yeah, there's a lot to it, but it's really cool. I mean, there's a lot of amazing functions with Revit, and I know some of our design team that we're working with use it, you know, exclusively for their projects. For you, Meg, I mean, just thinking about this. Okay, so you're manufacturing, you're in college, haven't built a house, you're now thrown into the fire, right? Trying to figure this out. Were you just doing research there in Chick-fil-A to figure out, okay, how do we build a schedule? How do we figure out timeline? Who goes after who? How helpful were the trades? Because I mean, I think in this, I mean, you mentioned Twin Falls, your trade base was maybe a little limited. Even in a city like Phoenix, we had the same issue. In 2008, everyone moved out of town. We've had some core people here, but it's a big city, but it's still limited on labor, which I'd imagine is still the same case for you.
Yeah, there were a lot of researching, and not all the research was great because different areas do things differently, not only like geographically with climates and that kind of thing, but also just our trades do things sometimes differently than they do in other areas, or our city requires different things. And so some of my online training wasn't the best, or research wasn't the best, but the trades are really where I was able to get that knowledge I needed. And I would just be obnoxious asking way too many questions. Just like, tell me who's next and what do they need? And, what questions do I need to have for them before they come in? And I'd always ask, like, how did the guy do before you? Because I didn't know enough on quality control to be like, man, that framer was the worst. None of these walls are plumb. But you better believe the trade after that trade is super open to discussing what he thinks of the quality.
Well, it's interesting you say that. One discussion I often have with our team, especially our supers, is for whatever reason, a lot of us, because maybe we're in the management sector. I mean, you are too, Meg. You're running your house now. You have your own company, which we'll get into. But even for me, it's when you're managing something, you feel as if you should be the expert and you should know
Mm-hmm.
everything because you're directing, the project, the scope, the budget, the trade partners, and so not all of them, but on occasion, sometimes they'll act like they know or maybe they don't know, and so they end up going the wrong direction, right? And whether you call it humility or just being willing to ask, right? How difficult was it for you to just get through that and say, look, I'm just going to be open. I'm learning this. Help me out. How advantageous was it just to have that mentality going into it?
Oh, it was huge. I would never have been able to get people on the team. Also, like I think they were willing to help out because they knew I wasn't trying to come in and acting like I didn't know, or acting like I knew everything. And so I think that was big for that. And then there was no other way to get the knowledge that I really needed. Um, it it wasn't easy. Like I don't love not knowing everything. I'm sure other people can maybe feel the same way, but it wasn't so bad on that first. It wasn't bad at all on the first one because I wasn't expected to know it. And then my first one out with my official license, I still felt very comfortable doing that. But that second round, I'm like, I can't make mistakes now. I should know all the answers. And anyone who's been in construction knows you don't know all the answers. Like every
Mhm.
home has issues and different things. And so we've just really learned to lean on our trades. If we've got amazing guys in there and I can ask and lean on their 25 years of experience, it just is a game changer.
So maybe fast forward to now, and we'll kind of break this down. But with the trade base you have now, are a lot of the same trades ones that work with you from the very beginning on your personal house?
No, actually, things have kind of grown and changed. And, COVID hit and trades got even crazier hard to find. And so we did some shuffling around then. And now we're coming out of it, and our company just looks a lot different. We're building these bigger homes that need crews of bigger sizes, and we're doing some detail work that some of them didn't want to pursue. They'd rather get through a small house really quick and move on to the next. So I think we use about a quarter of them, and the rest have kind of filtered in as we've learned and grown.
That's amazing. So after you finish your first house, when you were working through it, did you always have plans that you're going to start May construction, or was that something you're like, hey, I actually really like this?
This is so funny. I really did love it. Like, I complained a lot while we were going through it, and it was a little intense. And I even ran into our builder maybe 3 months later in Costco, and I'm like, just hire me as your superintendent. Like, I love it so much. Just let me come work for you. And he awkwardly laughed and said, okay, and kept walking. And I actually went and had kind of a crazy back surgery. So immediately after finishing our house, like days, flew to Texas, and they had to do a prosthetic disc replacement. And so that had me down and out for like 6 months probably, or just
Wow.
not ready to start a business. Like, I wasn't like
Mhm.
down and out for 6 months, but it was a big deal and an amazing surgery. So couldn't say enough about that. But there was a little bit of time in there before I was like, okay, I'm ready now. Like, let's do this for real.
So then after the surgery, and was this related to basketball days? Because you played college basketball, right?
Yeah, I'm sure it was partially genetics, partially way too many sports. Like, one spine can only take so many practices, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
I
and not to sidetrack, but back pain is the worst, right? It's funny because
oh,
yeah, I just did a podcast with Brandon. He's like a spine specialist, and different than like a traditional chiropractor. And he works on a lot of athletes, so he worked on my back because I started having some lower back issues, and you don't realize how valuable your back is until it goes out and you're dealing with a lot of pain because it really inhibits you from doing anything.
it's the worst. I would not wish that on anyone, and so grateful that I'm not dealing with that day in and day out anymore.
So pain free from the surgery, everything's good with the back.
Oh man, it's incredible. I can do anything I want. Like, there's no restrictions, and I'm still human. Like, I'm partially Terminator, but still a little bit human. So if I sit too long or do something dumb, it'll hurt me just like it would hurt anyone else. But
Yeah.
yeah, nerve stuff, all of that completely gone.
Yeah, so nerve issues that become a problem, as the muscles flare and stuff, and can be super painful. So, what does the company look like now? I was going to ask how many females are in the company, but maybe I should ask, are there any males? Right?
So right now we have 5 females in the company, which is awesome. And people seem to love that, like an all-female team. But we may have to hire some gross boys and like take down our girls only sign here pretty soon. Oh, I just
Why's that? Why's that?
well, I never intended it to be women only. I absolutely love it, but I don't think legally you can say that either, that that's what you're going for.
Yeah, I
My
guess we have to be careful anymore, and
yeah, I don't want to discriminate, but
yeah.
my husband actually is coming on to the team. So yeah, there will be a stinky boy in our office.
That's. I hope he listens to that. That's pretty good. So what do you plan for? So what's his role going to be? I mean, as you start thinking about roles and growing to 5 employees now, I mean, of course, that's a big step from you just starting your company. How does that work to understand just the delineation of who's responsible for what, and that baton, who holds it, and at what time?
Yeah, we're struggling with this right now, if I'm being honest. So Tyler has a major business background. He did physical therapy, which maybe doesn't sound like a major business background, but him and his partner went to every course you could ever imagine. And they've done every step, and they've grown their business from the two of them to
Wow.
18 clinics. So they've kind of seen businesses go, and other businesses they've done, but go from being super small to up to a point where like you just have to have systems and everything laid out. So we're going through our org chart right now and doing exactly what you're saying, figuring out like how these jobs pan out. And there's a lot of different options in construction for how you can make that look, which makes it a little harder. It's not just do this, hire this next person, and then do this, because every company looks a little different. So we're struggling through that right now and trying to make sure that the right people are in the right seats. And we're kind of doing multiple roles at once right now because there's five of us. And so
So when
breaking
did you
that
know it
up a
was time
little
to make
bit
your first
farther.
hire?
I was in a crawl space, dark, damp, spider infested crawl space. And I had so many emails and texts. I'm like, I can't go back up there. Like, I can't be caught by my trades and answer all the questions and go through things right now. And I just stayed under there with my head on a cinder block behind me, just emailing and catching up on all of the text messages. I'm like, I think maybe this is the point where you say it's time to hire someone. I think this is a
I
warning
love
sign
that,
right
just
here.
that image, if you will, because I think many people relate. Well, when's the right time to hire? Do I have enough work? And you're thinking about all the hats you're wearing as an entrepreneur and starting out, and you're in a crawl space, just like, okay, I'm going to sit here laying against a cinder block, and then I'm just catch up on emails, and that's your like aha moment that you need to hire. So how did you
Yeah.
make the hire? How did you find someone?
It was, oh man. I actually, there was a city inspector that I had worked with a lot, and as an inspector, the trades aren't supposed to like you. Like, you're the bad guy or the police. And everyone loved her, and she knew her stuff like in and out way better than me, like framing knowledge, all of that. And so it just happened that she was coming out of that role as I was crawling out of that crawl space.
That's amazing. So, and then when she was first hired, how did you determine kind of again, just when there were two of you, how did you figure out who would be doing what?
Oh, yeah. So she was so good at the job site stuff and knowing the subs or the trades. And so I handed off all the superintendent roles pretty quickly. And I had, uh, on that very first house, like I documented every single step. And so I gave her, like, I handed her builder trend and said, here's your step by step process. Go through here, and you can read it and like hear every mistake I made. Like, just every time there was a problem, I'll add in there, like, make sure you do this before the painters get there, and all of those different things. And so she was luckily like such a self starter. I think you've talked about that before. Like, maybe I'm not the best at training people
Yeah.
because I waited too long to hire, and so I'm just like throwing it at them. And so she just grabbed the bull by the horns and started calling people, and it's that was really great. And then I took like the client side and the business side and overseeing like major schedules
So
and
before you hired her, when you're
planning
in the
that
crawl
out.
space, maybe take us back there. So 6 months, you were out with the back surgery. You decided to start Make construction. Did you immediately have clients that you're starting to work with? Were you doing spec homes development? Kind of what was your kickoff moment?
Ooh, I did not want to fail in front of anyone. So I started with a spec home out in Little Kimberly, hoping that no one would notice what was happening. And I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know if I could do it. And like half of my brain would look at and other people and say, well, if that guy can do it, like I can do it. And then the other half would be like, oh, this could easily go wrong pretty quickly. And so I started with a spec. Things were selling well. Like, I didn't think it was a huge risk, but it was definitely, I didn't want a client to start out with for sure. And so, yeah, we just took that on, a little starter home, and walked through all the way from very beginning to end, and then it went really well. I went in saying, if I lose $30,000, that's my college education, like 4-year degree. I'll pay for it. Like, let's just do this. I can't like wait any longer or try and research anymore. Like, it's time to actually do it. And we ended up making like 20,000, and it was right as the COVID panic started. So just a great it was great. You kind of just have to jump in with building. At some point, you
Yeah, I
got to
love that
gain
perspective. I mean,
experience.
when you think about loss leader, and I think oftentimes us as builders, ideally we want to get to the point where we're making profit, man. And that's all the whole reason that we're in business, right? But there is a step there where there may be projects we take or experiences we're chasing that there may be a cost, right? Whatever that may be, opportunity cost or maybe actual dollar cost. Um, but to your point, the great application there, Meg, is that you're going to pay to go to college, right? You're going to pay to go invest in yourself, whether it be through a formal degree or just other ways of training. And so this is just an accelerated way to not only learn, as you mentioned, we're doing a spec home is great. So many people come on the podcast and like, Brad, if I were to start my company today, what would I do? And the easiest thing is that answer, that if you can go do a spec home, one, like you're saying, Meg, you're going to get the experience and you're going to go through this and get some of the bumps and bruises out of the way as you're going through the build. But you're going to have a sign up, you're going to have credibility, you're going to have marketing material, you're going to have a resume already, because a lot of people won't hire you until you built a home. Well, how can you get that first job unless you've done one? So it's kind of that chicken and egg thing. So there's a lot of value to build on spec. Looking at that decision now, how has that played a role to catapult to where you are today by doing that spec home?
Oh, I mean, everything came from there. That was the main start. And that money we made from it, we helped fund to do two at a time. So that felt a little more like a business. Like, okay, if this, like, we've got to do this, and so we just leveled up there. And I think doing specs was really great for us for our area because we were able to control the design. We're in an area where design isn't that important. Like, if you can build the same brown stucco house really quick, make a lot of money, why would you do a crazy 12-12 and change up materials? And so those spec homes that we did at the beginning, like that first one was just a starter home and it was super cute, but very budget friendly. And then we started layering on more and more design. And I think that is really what set us apart from our competition is people were seeing us do something different that maybe if we had a client, we would have been able to, but clients have their own ideas and things they want. And so I think that helped us carve out our own
There
little
is. I mean, I
niche
would
in our
agree to that. I
area.
mean, I've only been to Idaho a couple of times, but the product that you're putting in the market, or at least been advertising through Instagram and showcasing, is definitely different than a lot of the product that's up there. Did that help? Help you to stand out as well?
Oh, it's been huge. It's been huge, and I mean, I'm grateful that that's the case, and that there weren't a ton of people doing other things. Like, it made it come a little bit smoother. But we just did a parade home last year, and the comments we got, and being able to have clients or prospective clients come through and see like, oh, this is what I'll get if we go with her, has just been a huge influence in our business
So
and our
as you're
growth.
looking at this now, how many projects or spec homes did you self-perform before working with your first, built to suit for a client?
We did 5 before we did our first. Um, which I think was a pretty good number. We felt a lot more comfortable going into it with the building side. And then you have to go learn the client side. Like, that's a whole nother kind of a ball game, and how to communicate with them and work with what they're wanting and when to put your foot down, and working within their budget and their decision making. And so I think it was great to have those under our belt so that we were learning
What
one
does
game
your
instead of
pre-construction
two.
process look like? And what I mean by that is, so for example, in Arizona, we're only doing build a suit. I don't have any spec homes right now, but here at AFT, the client's going to acquire a lot. a lot of cases they come to us. We're going to work with an architect and designer, work through that, pricing, budgeting, and then get to permit. And then of course we take it through the build. In your area, are you helping acquire the land? When are you integrated into the project when you have a client on the other side?
We've actually been in all the positions. So we do have a design studio. So that brings us clients from that side that want our designers, picking all the finishes on the house and that kind of thing. So that helps bring them to us early. We've done some lots that we've had ourselves, but I think most of our clients come in with their own lot, and then we're making that work for them. We do really love to be in early, and so our architect or drafter, whoever we're working with, if they're local, we'll actually have them come into our office and they'll plug into our computer and have the client come in, and so we'll go through everything together. And it's been really beneficial when we can be there early. And also, it takes a little hustle game to catch up with the architect and the client what they're wanting when we come in at the end. But it also takes a lot less time, and you're not sitting through all those meetings where husband and wife are looking at each other like, wait, you want a basement? I didn't know we wanted a basement. Do we want a basement? And just like changing everything. And so,
That's
yeah, we've kind of been at it
that's where
from
you
all
realize you're part
sides.
psychiatrist and like marriage counselor as well.
Oh, man, no one needs a project management degree. Forget that. Go get your marriage, counseling degree. That's all you need to.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that.
Oh,
So let me ask you this: so
um,
with being that you have your own design studio, are you performing the interior design on all of your projects?
so we're self-performing. That's not me. Mandy Hodges, she's been with me from the beginning. She's insanely talented and so fun and just decisive. Like having her by your side making a million decisions is amazing. So I don't do it, but our company
But
does.
you are essentially creating that service. You not individually, but as a company, you're organizing that structure and the design aesthetic and the design book and everything
Hmm.
you need to build.
Yeah, yep, all of that, which it's great. There is not another design
Really?
studio in town, so it kind of sets us
Like,
apart.
and when you say
Yeah, yeah.
so I
Idaho
was going to
Falls
say,
has
so
an
when you say
awesome one.
design studio, are you speaking
Go
that
ahead.
there's not really interior designers or even a place where they can go and you essentially have your own like design center showroom?
So yeah, there's no design rooms. Like there's some women in town and they do a great job, but they're just kind of doing it out of the house here and there. But we're the only ones like we have everything in house. So every sample they could want, every, when you build in our area, the builder just says, here's your budgets. Go talk to these companies and then let me know what you decide. And so they're like driving all over town trying to get one sample. The quartz guys, like they will not let those samples out of their sight. And so you're just making these decisions through the entire build process, which is stress upon stress. So we have brought everything into the studio and we do everything before we break ground so that because building's stressful, it's messy, things go wrong. And if we can take all the decision fatigue out of that and have that done ahead of time, it just makes life so much better for everyone.
Well, it's fascinating you say that because I didn't anticipate taking this direction on the podcast, having you on, because frankly, I didn't realize that you have your own design studio, that you're doing that. And so, just pros of hiring a designer, there's a lot of value, right? You think about just the time, and I can only imagine and as you mentioned, the designers are trying to do a good job, but for the clients, I'm working with a normal builder, what's really difficult when they're going to maybe a cabinet place and then a plumbing place for plumbing fixtures and then tile and countertop, blending and making sure everything looks great in all areas of the home, that's really challenging.
It just makes it more cohesive and like it takes all the change orders, not all the change orders. It makes change orders way better because they're not like, oh, 3 months ago I thought I liked this, but now that I see this other thing that goes with it, and it's been really great for our clients.
So as far as, are you still doing specs or are you just doing build a suits now then?
So we'll probably do 1 to 2 specs, I think, a year is kind of what we're thinking. Right now, we just finished up our last one, and then we have one other on the market. It was our parade home. And I haven't dropped the price in 6 months because it has brought us so many clients. Just the fact of having a model home that we can take the clients through has been awesome. And so we're kind of thinking if we um, had this great result from kind of a smaller model home, that maybe we should sell a couple and build a model home that we keep for a couple of years.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I do know a lot of builders that because we're in the industry, right? A lot of builders will build their own house, right? Their own personal home. I would imagine if you're to do your house now, it's going to be a little bit different than when you did it years ago, being that you
Yeah.
have a lot of experience and knowledge and know-how. The process is definitely much better, more refined. And plus you have more context, being realistic, right? You've built contacts and relationships. And so a lot of builders will build their own personal house with a lot of those details because it can serve as a model for their clientele.
Yeah. I think that's a great call. We're developing some land, and it will be ready here in just a couple months. And I'm pretty excited about it. You were asking before about if the client comes to us for the land, and this would be one where hopefully that's bringing us more and more clientele in kind of a nicer area.
And you're doing all
And
the development? Are there like internally with Meg Construction?
yeah, yep. It's not a huge one. It's 14 lots, so nothing
That's a lot.
too
That's not
crazy.
small, but it's not small.
But that's been really interesting and exciting. But thinking about that, like, should we build a personal home or should we do just a empty spec home? And Brad, you don't know my kids, but I don't know if our house could ever be the show home.
It's funny you say that. I feel the same. I'm like, with my kids, I'm like, I tell my wife, I'm like, with our kids, everything's destroyed all the time. And I think anyone listening that has kids can relate to that I can't ever keep the house nice because the kids just destroyed. And, definitely like the cobbler, right? That's, at home, I come home and Ashley's like, are you going to fix this? What about this hole in the wall, from my son's skateboard and it's just like it piles up and she's just like, when are you going to fix this stuff? And I'm like, I don't know. So maybe that's too
Yeah.
much to share on the podcast, but it's definitely something that I think a lot of people can relate with. The last thing I want to do is go fix something, like I was just over the weekend, had to go to Home Depot and change some door hardware because, it's falling apart, but it's one of those things. That's the hard part about being a builder.
It's so true. We've been in our home for 6 years now, or five, somewhere there. And I just hired a handyman finally. Like, my husband's like, I can't take it anymore. You keep saying you know people, but half of our handles don't work. There are holes in every room. Yeah, so I just said, go at it. Just, go through this whole house, fix everything you can find.
Yeah, this summer I told my wife, I'm like, we just replaced the dishwasher, so just got that done. And again, here we go, to-do list, right? But we're gonna go back and get a bunch of repairs done. So I'm like, we'll finally get all these done. That way we can enjoy it. But so with the 14 lots you have, kind of what's your game plan there, if you don't mind me asking? With you developing these, are you going to sell each of an individual lot? Is there going to be an agreement where if they buy it, they have to build with you? Are you allowing other builders to come in there? Kind of how are you working through the development arm?
So it's a struggle. I've heard a lot of people say, like, when you do this, you have to wear your development hat, take that off, and then put on your builder hat, because the two don't get along very well. So the developer just wants to get them sold
Get to
and,
ROI,
pay
get
off
them
the bank.
sold. Yeah,
And
right.
yeah, like, it's smart, right? But then the builder side of me is like, well, if we get great clients and amazing homes, like, why would I let anyone else take these lots? And so it's been a struggle. We bounced back and forth, and especially when the market was like so amazing and crazy good. I'm like, there's no way I'm selling any of these. Like, this will be a pure Meg construction neighborhood here. And now things are slowing down a little bit. I think we're maybe a little more willing to let in someone else or some specific builders, just to make sure we get the bank loan paid off and then, save the rest for ourselves.
Yeah, it's tough. I can relate because I do know a lot of builders that do keep them because it's great. It's great. For lack of a better word, it's guaranteed, you know, backlog, right? For the
Mm-hmm.
company and project. So for Make Construction, you can have backlog. But as a developer, yeah, there's costs, right? There's costs to develop and prep the lots and get utilities in there and have them all ready so that people can come in, and those costs are real, and they accrue, and they, there's interest on them, and it's just like a commercial development. And so, but once you can get, the principal paid off, then yes, then you may have, some opportunity there where you can sit on a little bit longer, be a little bit more patient until the market dictates.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that'd be really great. We do have some that are coming in where I think, oh, maybe we will just get both and then I won't have to play the game. But we're,
What's the market looking like? I mean, in Twin Falls, with interest rates where they are, how's that impacted your market?
um, it has been kind of great for us. Like, we do want to build these high end homes, and the high end homes are moving just as much as they were before. It's more that mid level starter home, where people really need that interest rate to match up with their personal finances. And so we've actually had bigger homes coming in this year than we've had in the past. And I know some of that's reputation, but also I think the market's still moving for those homes and not as much for the smaller ones.
What size homes are people typically building there?
Oh,
Or at least what
that's
size homes are you building, Meg?
this year most of ours are between 5,000 and we may have a 12,000, or we're still working on floor plans right now. So bigger homes, like they're fun. There'll be a great challenge on a few of them and some really great ones to build.
And working with your clients, it sounds like you have quite a few projects, quite a few clients right now. Any lessons learned from that customer experience?
We've learned all the tough lessons on the customer experience side. Um, I On the good side, like the communication, we're really good at that, and so we really try and lean into that. And transparency, like if they can get into our software and they can see what they need to, that's been really good. um, Picking clients, now that's not so easy. We've learned a few lessons, and we've learned a few lessons on making sure that contract's signed and that deposit's in before we put in a lot of time and effort. And um, yeah, we had one not too long ago that it 100% my fault, but I didn't get a deposit beforehand. I'm like, oh, like they're good. Like this will be a really exciting one. Like I just got caught up into kind of the excitement of it. And they pulled out at the end, and I had already moved over $4,000 worth of dirt, which I mean is
Oh,
not a big
yeah.
deal, but
But still, it is.
yeah. And they're like, we're not going to pay for it. I'm like, oh, I'm going to spend 2,000 more to get that dirt back now.
Yeah.
So just the tough lessons you learn, and learning to really have that system and procedure instead of going off of emotion or all of that.
Yeah, I think that's really good counsel and a good lesson. I think anyone listening has been guilty. I mean, I have as well, guilty of moving too quickly on a project, or justifying maybe the relationship with the client, or how well you know them, or how important the project may be to the portfolio. I mean, there's so many different nuances to this, right? To our business development and construction. And so you start justifying things and you get too far down the road, and then something may change and alter, and it really affects the business. And case in point, we have a client right now that just to be formal. So for us, we've gotten really formal with time cards, right? So just understanding, especially being cost plus, like how we're tracking our time. And we've been really adamant to get pre-construction deposits and working through the design element of all of our projects. And one of them I missed. I don't know how, but it just didn't get happen. So my team's trying to do their time cards, but my controller's like, I'm not putting that in, so sign contract deposit. And so, anyways, just getting even years down the road, it's really easy to kind of miss something like that. And it's really important that we have the processes that we're checking this so that we don't end up on that position again down the road.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of moving parts. Having those systems definitely is a good safety net.
So, what about training? For your team, there's 5 of you. How do you handle continuing education training for them and yourself?
I love learning. I love it so much. And so we do put in a healthy annual budget for training for each employee. And going to the international builder shows, obviously, always on our list because that's amazing. You get networking, you get classes and products, and everything is there. We don't have a setup system for training, like which courses we'll go to. So our superintendents just took one from the NAHB that came across. It was like a 4 year or a 4 week different class. But no, tell me what I'm supposed to do, Brad. What's your system?
That's a good question. That's something that we've tried to spend some more time with. And I really didn't have a system, I'll be honest, even before. And then you realize how valuable continuing education is, because what I've seen is that with our employees, there's more of a buy-in, right? When there's opportunity for them to learn and grow, that they really are committed and they see that there's a goal. So you met Mark LaLiberte, who was there at the last Coalition Summit, and we were fortunate to do Mark's house. And so I was talking with Mark, and Mark is amazing in the sense that he understands the details of flashing and waterproofing and just really the building science of a house. And because we're working on so many projects and so many different architects and designers, the specifications are different on every project. And so I had posted an Instagram story on one of my projects, and Mark calls me right away and he's like, "Brad, that is not a good product, for the weather barrier." And even it's the only job that we're a consultant on. So we're not technically the general contractor; we're a consultant. We're hired on, so it's a little bit different. Regardless, notwithstanding, we want to make sure it's done right. And so we brought Mark in so that he can consult with us and get this resolved. And Mark's like, "Brad, why don't I come in, teach your team? We'll do like a 2-hour training and I'll walk them through everything." And then in addition to that, he has his construction instructions. So I've sent some of my team, I'm going to send the rest of them. And so what I found is we just had a lunch and learn with one of our pool companies came in, just speaking about pool construction and permits. And we do pools on all of our homes. So what I found, Meg, is that what we've been trying to do now is as we do our production meetings, we have trades come in and they're teaching and instructing because they have a lot of knowledge, right? They really do. Like you mentioned, when you're learning out, starting, Meg, I mean, they're essentially training you on the schedule. And I think there's a lot they all have to offer. And, from excavation all the way to completion. And so we've been trying to utilize our trade base in addition to, just some of the seminars and not to go too long winded on you, but again, Fox Blocks, we do a lot of ICF. So Fox Blocks called me and they said, "Brad, we're doing a seminar down there in May." So I'm sending like 5 of my team to go down. Even though some of them have done ICF projects, they're going to go get a formal training from the supplier in ICF. So, suppliers, trade partners have been good resources for us to continue that for our team.
I love that. I'm going to have to lean on a few of those resources.
Yeah, and for you, it may be. I know it's different from market. I know Twin Falls may be a little bit smaller city, but I mean, I don't know. As you think about communities to Salt Lake or Boise, I mean, there's some other areas where I'm sure it may be a little bit more feasible, not too far away, where bigger metro cities may have some different opportunities from some of your suppliers as well.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So, how have you figured out the financial side? Not profit margin. We won't get into that, but I mean, what are you using to manage, especially when you're dealing with specs, investments? There's going to be dollars and carrying costs and interest, and then you're doing build to suits. So there's that aspect of like owner billing, and then now you're doing development. I mean, you're dealing with a lot of complicated financial elements, right, to all these different companies, and then trying to integrate them under the same umbrella.
Yeah, totally. When I started, obviously, I didn't know how much soffit would cost or how much a total build would cost me. And so a lot of it's been learned by necessity and picking up what I could and picking other builders' brains, like, so how much did you pay for the fence on that house? And trying to figure out, even like just at the beginning, like, am I getting taken advantage of, or is this an appropriate bid, or those sort of things. And then we got into this like frenzy where it didn't matter if you built it, you'd make money, and the longer it took you to build, you'd probably make more money because the prices just kept going up. And so I was able to get away with a little bit there without having my systems really cleaned up at the beginning. And then tracking finances has been huge. My my poor dad, he's officially an accountant. I told you he did a lot of building, but accounting was his degree. And I had him come over and sit in my office, and I'm like, okay, tell me what I'm supposed to do in QuickBooks. And so that poor old guy had to sit there for hours and just kind of go through like breaking things up as a project and how I can do project estimates in there, and or budgets, and tracking them and forecasting. Anyway, everything to do in there, which was a huge improvement. Like, knowing your numbers is such a big part of it, and I'm not the best at it yet, but just taking those steps. And then since then, we've had a bookkeeper come in, and she's actually an accountant, and she did the same thing and whipped me into shape. And then I actually got into a builder's 20, not in, but I'm going to my first meeting with them. So I'm having to fill out
Oh,
that builder's
congrats.
20 form.
When's the meeting?
Thanks. It's beginning of
When
May.
is it?
So
Wow, so
May
just in a couple
7th.
weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. So I better get my game together before then. But no, it's just been awesome, and kind of that same progression as the rest of my learning. Like, we keep looking back on things we've done even 6 months ago and being like, oh, we were so cute then. Like, that's what we thought would get us to the next level. And um yeah, and then when everything shut down and nothing was selling, that was really hard, and starting to really realize that need for projecting and monthly, like mapping out all of the finances, because we went for months there with no income because we were uh, we have we always kept one client at a time, but we had 4 specs on the market, nothing was moving. And so dealing with all of that, and I'll say I came into this, I'm like, I don't understand how a builder could get into trouble financially. Like, why would they ever overextend themselves or do anything like that? And you just, it's hard. Like, you got to know, in building, there's huge bills that come in, and then there's quiet months, and then huge, just massive bills. And so getting really good at projecting like what month this is going to land and how we can organize things, I think, is a big deal.
Yeah, it's good perspective because it is easy when the economy's great, the market's great. You know, you're thinking that, yeah, it's going to be easy to make money. Everyone should be making money. And then things change. Interest rates go up. The leads maybe aren't, phone's not ringing, lead generation change. And so forecasting, what's really hard about construction, those ebbs and flows. It could be great. It could be low. You're working too hard. You're not working enough. And so it's that balance you're always trying to figure out, which is the hardest part about our industry.
Yeah. Yeah. That balance.
And from your side, Meg, as you look through with the trades now, so I know for a long time, probably in your area, trades kind of had the upper hand, right? And response time and maybe site cleanliness. How's that change in their response quality? Do you see that changing at all, or is it still a challenge?
Trades will always be a challenge, but oh man, it's a different game right now. I The other day it was snowing like crazy, and I called my superintendent. I'm like, you got to get out there or get the kid out there. Like, this needs to be shoveled off or our framers won't come. And so she's like getting the shovels, getting out there, and the framers are out there just blowing it off. They're like, oh no, we'll take care of this. And I got a little choked up, if I'm going to be honest. Like, how many years did I have to go out there? Like, it's just me and my 7-year-old kid trying to shovel this house out in time for the morning so the framers won't just walk off. And so, yeah, I'd say it's changed quite a bit.
It's
Um,
it's funny you say that because I was just talking with so Paul, one of my employees here. He has a couple of projects, and he was saying the hardest thing isn't, he's like, you can be really organized to understand where I need to be during the day, at which job I need to be at, and the flow and everything. He's all, but what you can handle is when you're not at the job and someone's parked in the way that they're just like, well, I'm going to leave, I'm done, I got a paint bucket in my way, I'm out of here. And it's
yeah,
that aspect where it's just this mentality, like they're gone, and you really have to like essentially roll out the red carpet for them. But we're not at that point yet in Phoenix. I'm hoping that it gets a little bit better, that they not so much hungry, but that balance is a little bit level. But it sounds like it's getting a little more level for you.
yeah, it's definitely been a lot better. And saying that we want them hungry, it's not even that. Like, our trades were just exhausted. Like, the ones that we trusted the most, and like even them, it was hard to get them because they were just trying to harvest while they could, I guess, and not turn down opportunities, and they were just running ragged. So I think our trades for the most part are feeling the same way as we are, like just super grateful to have our quality back, our craftsmanship, and that attention to detail that we just weren't getting because it was so quick. They needed to be in and out, and trying to get them back was impossible. And so we're feeling super grateful for it, and I think they are too. And we can do planning ahead. Like, we're doing poll plans now, which we never would have gotten away with that a year ago. There's no way we could have gotten them to come. And it's just making their life so much better, and they're super grateful. So I see a lot of bonus or positives on both sides.
Yeah, that's good. I would agree. So many of them have been overworked for so long, and they're just so exhausted because it's been 3 years of just nonstop, right? That
Mm-hmm.
just building's been, on fire on a national level. And so supply chain, suppliers are exhausted, trades are exhausted. I think our team is. And so, just monitoring that mental health of everybody has been really key.
Yeah. Yes, for sure.
So what for you, Meg, as you look back now, what do you wish you would have known at the beginning that you know today?
Oh, at the beginning, there's, are
Or
you
if you were to
kidding,
start
Brad?
over,
I needed
yeah.
everything.
Well, if you were to start over, maybe it's, whether it be marketing. I know you're super active into marketing. How has that played a role just in being active on
Oh,
social media?
it's been huge. It's hard to be an active company right now in anything if you don't have a social media presence. And I'm the first to tell you, I hate social media. Like, from a personal aspect, my own page has like 7 posts, which I know I'm supposed to get that going if I want things to get going. But
Not really,
and
because I don't have a personal page, and same thing, we don't have a ton of content on our personal one either.
really,
Yeah,
oh, good.
so I don't do anything on my personal one. I mean, I guess on LinkedIn I do, but that's different.
Yeah, I'm going to tell everyone who gives me that advice that they don't know what they're talking about, and I'm going to be like Brad.
Well, don't use me as an example, but at least you could tell them that, yeah, the business aspect is really important. The personal, like that's out for discussion for sure. So
Yeah. No, we've loved it though. Clients being able to see it, like, it just really legitimizes you as a business. And I don't know that it's bringing us a lot of clients, but I think it's closing a lot of clients for us.
yeah, that's interesting. I think that's a really good statement that it may not, even if it's not bringing in business, it's closing them, right? Because there's still that
Mhm.
element, which is part of the sales process. Best advice you've been given.
Oh, I the only limitations are the ones you set up in your own mind is a quote from Napoleon Hill, but Tyler always uses that. And I totally agree. And I find myself doing that. Like whatever limitations that I'm going to set for myself, that's where I'll max out. That will be my ceiling. And so getting rid of those and looking to the future and getting around people like an AFT where they blew past that ceiling that I had in my mind and doing things differently. So I think that's really good advice and maybe good advice that I need.
Sorry, I cut out for a second. We're good. And then Meg, for those listening, being sensitive to your time and schedule, what's upcoming and exciting, and where can our listeners find you?
Oh, upcoming and exciting. We do have a house right now that I am completely stoked for. It's a geothermal house.
Oh,
So
wow.
everything, yeah, it's going to be amazing. It's 8,000 square feet, like 2 layers of glass on one side, right on the river. And the geothermal spring comes in and it will completely fill the pool every single day, cycle through. It's heating the house, it's heating the driveway. It's just something that's going to be super exciting for the portfolio.
How did you get involved in that?
A friend of a friend recommended us, and so they were looking at other builders in the area. And honestly, it's the client side or the customer service side, I think, that closed that deal in most of ours. Like they want someone that's excited about something different like that and willing to put in the time and willing to, yeah, put in that extra effort.
What does that look like for you, just from educational understanding? Working with the right engineers. Your involvement just in something that's on that more complicated side.
Yeah, we have been putting in a lot of phone calls, and the client actually has a lot of experience with it and doesn't want to be left out of it either, which is kind of cool. And so, yeah, we've been bringing in different engineers, and even the excavation is going to be kind of crazy because it's a sheet of rock. And if you put a weak spot in that rock, that water flow is going to change direction. And so, a lot of consideration and time is going to have to go into that one.
Well, that's amazing. We can't wait to follow along. This and be an impressive build. So where can we follow along, and where can our listeners find you?
We're on Instagram at Meg Construction, and our website's megconstruction.com.
Well, Meg, you've been amazing. Can't thank you enough for making time, and we look forward to following along.
Awesome. Brad, thank you so much for having me. We really appreciate it, and it's been a blast.
If you get value from the show, please support us by giving a 5-star rating and review on whatever platform you listen to. And I also have a favor to ask. We've had some incredible guests that come on and share their wisdom, their knowledge about their business. So if you have friends or family members that could benefit from those episodes, please share it with them, as well as any other business owners that you're networking with that could get value from the podcast or certain episodes. Please share those as well. Again, subscribe, make sure you're following. Any questions that you have, topics. We've had listeners reach out about certain guests that we should have on the show. Again, brad.l@aftconstruction.com. Email me for topics to address, guests that we should have on, and even if you think you'd be a great guest for the show. So again, thank you for all your support, and we'll see you next time.